It's spring 2017, and Colonel Julia Coxen is calling her husband. She's in a hotel room just outside of Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, and has something exciting to tell him. One day earlier, Julia had arrived at the Space Center with 100 other people. Each visitor was not only an expert, but probably the best in their field. And why were they there? For the opportunity to become an astronaut.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5.
Looks good, Captain.
Up until a few years ago, the thought of going into space had never crossed Julia's mind, including during her 20 years of Army service. But the recent experience of one of her friends had planted the seed.
I had an opportunity watching a very good friend and someone that I admire and respect profoundly go through the process. And that first sparked my interest. So when the opportunity arose again to apply, I just jumped at the opportunity.
Despite having a PhD in systems engineering and all her years of service with the Army, including in key spots in Special Operations Command, Julia was sure she wouldn't make it.
I was so sure I wasn't going to be selected that I hadn't really even told anybody that was applying. And they had 18,000 applicants. And they cut from 18,000 down to, I don't even know how many. But the way that you find out that you made that first cut is they start reaching out to your references. And I was so sure that I wasn't going to make it that I hadn't told any of them. And so someone had reached out to me and said, "Hey, we got this email from NASA." And I was like, "Oh, shoot, sir, I got to call you back. I got to go call everyone else that I told that I put on there as my reference and let them know. Please don't delete this email from NASA."
Making it to the shortlist led to her trip to the Johnson Space Center, where she took part in a wide range of interviews and panel discussions. But even then, she wasn't convinced it was a possibility.
You know, I kind of just went out there thinking, gosh, I'm just going to put my best foot forward, right? And my husband has this phrase that he always says, like, "Hey, you're playing with the house's money. You've got a great job. You've got a great thing going on. You're just playing with the house's money." And so I went out there just thinking, I'm just going to put my best foot forward and do the best I can when I go out there.
But then she spent a day talking to some of the other shortlisted applicants, from scientists to athletes to professors, and they blew her away.
Just met these super hyper-talented folks that were also great team players and wonderful people, like wonderful humans, in addition to all of their talents. And so it was just extraordinary to be exposed to all of that.
And after a day talking to these impressive people and being taken on tours of the facilities, Julia placed that late-night call to her husband.
I called back to my husband, and I was like, "Oh, man, I really want to be an astronaut. Oh, man, this is so cool. I can't play it cool anymore." It was just so great.
The daughter of Korean immigrants, Julia and her brothers alongside her were ingrained with the importance of service, and that led to her enrollment in the ROTC program. She has spent more than 2 decades using her knowledge in systems engineering to lead battalions and help catch, as she says herself, bad guys. It's a career that led to her current assignment mentoring the next generation of leaders as department head of systems engineering at West Point. And it also led to that fateful trip to the Johnson Space Center. In today's episode, our hosts sit down with Julia to talk about how she makes systems engineering interesting and relevant to her students, how her research is helping track down and capture sex traffickers, and yes, we find out what happened after that phone call to her husband. I'm Carrie Viral-Heikes, and this is Army Matters.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Army Matters. I am your co-host, Sergeant of the Army retired Dan Dailey, and you know who I'm here with? My good friend.
Your best buddy, the 66th Inspector General of the United States Army, Lieutenant General Leslie C. Smith. Dan, how are you?
Good.
I can't wait to see your new and improved vehicle there.
I know, I got a brand new car.
What? What color is it?
Sapphire blue.
Sapphire blue. You like the color blue.
I'm a blue guy.
Your other car was a blue car.
Yeah, I know. I finally had to trade in. I love that little thing, that Chevy Spark. People used to make fun of it, but it was awesome.
But your new car gets good gas mileage too, doesn't it?
It does, and it's it's an improvement on the all-terrain side, obviously.
Nice.
Yeah, because the little car,
no,
not good in snow. Not good in snow.
Especially today.
Very good in the city in the summer,
right?
Not good in snow.
Not good in snow.
Anyway, so Les,
what are we talking about today, man?
Well, I'm going to ask you a series of questions. We're going to do something new.
Okay.
Who was the best school teacher you ever had?
Wow. I'm going to answer it, but I'm going to tell you this. Do you know when you have a good teacher, you never forget their name?
Never.
It's like a drill sergeant, right?
Yeah.
But my best school teacher was Mrs. Mentor.
Mentor.
M-I-N-T-R. You want to know why?
Why?
She was a math teacher.
Oh, I love math.
Unique thing about her, she was in a wheelchair.
Really?
But everybody was afraid of her.
Oh.
Yeah, because she was tough. Let me back up a little bit for our listeners. I went to a parochial Catholic elementary school.
I did too.
So what?
Yes.
We have something in common.
Yes,
but you're not Catholic, are you?
Yes, I am.
Oh, you are?
Yes.
All right.
We won't go there.
This won't be a religious show today. But yeah, so they could spank you on your
I used to
wrist.
send permission slips home to my parents, and they would sign them. My parents gave
the nuns
permission to discipline us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So our school, but Mrs. Mentor was a great math teacher, and I think she was a person that says, "Hey, let me show you," but she was really a good person.
Yeah. Now, what grade was that?
That fourth grade. Fourth grade. Yeah. Mm-hmm. How about you? Who's the best school teacher you had?
You were right. Once you have that favorite teacher, you never, ever, ever forget their name. Mm-hmm. And mine was Mr. O'Donnell.
Mr. O'Donnell. What did he teach?
Fifth grade math.
Fifth grade math. Okay.
Yeah. Well, we were in Catholic school, so he taught all kinds of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So because we were a small school, and the teachers, rotated and had many subjects, but he was just cool. He was just cool, and
he was a cool guy.
Yeah, and you just wanted to do well, and he made class fun every day,
right?
And he actually came and visited me when I made Sergeant Major of the Army.
Nice.
Yeah, he still remembered me.
Yeah.
And if you ask both of my brothers, because we all went to that same Catholic elementary school, that Mr. O'Donnell was probably a lot of people's favorite.
So when you talked to Mr. O'Donnell, did he ever think that you were going to be the Sergeant Major of the Army?
Oh, no. No, of course not. Fifth grade. But
isn't that amazing?
And when he came to see me when I made Sergeant of the Army, he brought the class photos of my oldest brother, my next oldest brother, and me. Yep.
No, he did.
Because in school, you take class photo with the teacher, right?
Sure.
And he brought them all. And that's how much he loved his students. And I bet he has every single year he taught. I guarantee he does.
I bet.
Yeah. Wow, I learned something new about you today. I didn't know you went to Catholic school.
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't know you went to Catholic school either, because we never talked about stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay. But you don't have to genuflect when you come into my office. Okay.
No.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So, Les, the reason why we're talking about teachers is we actually have the senior professor for the Department of Systems Engineering of West Point in the studio with us today. Let's welcome Colonel Julia Coxen to the show.
Colonel Julia Coxen, welcome to Army Matters.
Thank you, SMA, and thank you, General Smith. It was a pleasure meeting you both.
So, Julia, in the opening, you shared your experience about being part of the United States astronaut program. What was the biggest lesson you learned from that?
Well, I wasn't selected, so I should probably correct that up front. I wasn't selected.
Oh.
I was a finalist.
Okay.
I wasn't. I made it to
That's
the
all right.
top 50 or 50-ish, I think, out
That's
of
all right.
18,000.
Les would have never got close, so that's impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I should be clear. I wasn't actually selected.
Okay.
Actually, you can't see it, but I have the rejection letter framed on the back of my wall here. It's my proudest failure and proudest accomplishment, all wrapped up in one little frame.
Okay.
I have it up here to remind me, sort of just how interesting life can be, and just what a great experience that was.
Right.
But I think the if I learned one lesson throughout that process, it's that NASA promotes what they would call like an expeditionary mindset, which is this idea of elevating the needs of the team above your own and being able to work in austere environments. And I think that was something I really took away from meeting the other folks and being able to work in that environment. So you meet these extraordinary people, I don't know, you name it, an Air Force pilot that can fly any airframe, I would be like that first night at dinner, I'd be sitting there having dinner with folks and I'm looking around and this guy over here is having a conversation with somebody else about gravity's effect on time. And then over here, this guy's having a conversation about like real teleportation. And, I'm like, I think I'm pretty tough. Like I've been places, I've done stuff.
Wait a minute, ma'am, we can teleport people now?
Yeah, not people yet.
You said real teleportation.
I know some guy was talking about the research he was doing.
I think you may have just divulged some secret thing. Oh my gosh.
I hope. It was some research he was doing with like he was trying to do some sort of teleportation. And so I was just saying that like, sometimes
could cover up.
I think we
we're not clear.
No. We don't have all the read-ons.
Yeah. The alien question's coming next.
Well, there were so many cool people there. So it was such a humbling experience, but I am so grateful for it. And, like I said, I get to work with cadets all day long now. And one of them ultimately at some point will come up to me and say, hey, I'm troubled. I have a thing. I didn't do well at it. I failed at a thing. And I'll just point them to my letter on my wall. And I'll say, hey, I did a thing once that I really wanted at some point, and I didn't get that. And I survived. And I'm okay. And in fact, I'm really proud of that failure.
I have a saying that says, it's okay to fail. It's not okay to quit.
That's great. I'm going to steal that one, Sergeant Major.
But ma'am, there's still a chance. You know why? Because if Jeff Bezos can buy his way in there, all
That's
you got to
right.
do is raise enough money. I say that's what, to our listeners out there, let's get the Colonel into space. Send in your cash today.
This is the start of it. That's
This
right.
is the start of it.
We'll start a GoFundMe.
We're going to do a GoFundMe. We're going to get you into space.
I'll get up there eventually.
So, Julie, you grew up as a second generation Korean American. Can you tell us first where you grew up and then how your parents taught you about the value of service?
I grew up as a child of Korean immigrants in New Jersey.
New Jersey. Okay.
And my parents came over here in 1969. So they were early immigrants. And they were incredibly gritty. And they taught us a really strong work ethic, I think, from the beginning. But more importantly, they were absolutely so proud and patriotic and so grateful to be in this country. When I was growing up in New Jersey, I had not one, not two, but 3 American flags in my front yard growing up. I mean, we were very strongly grateful to be living and working in this country. My parents went on to, raise 3 kids here. I have 2 older brothers. All 3 of us got a chance to go to school on ROTC scholarships. And we all served in different ways.
A lot of people understand the history of South Korea and the Korean War, but a lot of folks don't. Can you just describe how that impacted on your parents?
Absolutely. So my father was born in 1942, which meant that he was 8 years old when the Korean War kicked off in 1950, which lasted until 1953 when the armistice happened between North and South Korea. And so when he immigrated here, South Koreans have a conscription service. And so it wasn't unusual for folks to want to serve and to, be part of service. And so I think that came very naturally to us, that we all applied to have ROTC scholarships so that we could go to college. But absolutely that sort of initial gratitude, just being here and living here and working here and being able to have all these opportunities, really passed down from my parents and to us, right? I mean, we were, from a very young age, taught to serve back to our communities, whether that was through church or, we volunteered at nursing homes and, food pantries or you name it. We were always sort of giving back to our communities. I have a great appreciation for it now, but, at the time I'm like, man, I want my Saturday to go play. But
So, Julia, you went to University of Pennsylvania majoring in systems engineering, which we'll talk about in a bit. but I noticed something special in your bio. You never told us that you minored in music. Did you play an instrument?
I do. I dabble. I
What?
still
Come on.
play the
Dabble?
piano a little. I play the guitar a little.
Really?
I actually.
Les, you know what that means? She's
Yes.
probably really good.
Yeah. The thing I like to do the most actually is sing, and
Really?
but I don't get a
Oh.
chance to. Right?
You know what you
Oh.
have right now? A perfect opportunity.
I do have a microphone right in front
It's
of
a
me.
good
I'm not afraid of
microphone,
a
too. It's a
microphone.
good one.
That's right.
It's a good one.
So I will say, for what it's worth, I did get an opportunity to work with the West Point Glee Club for a couple
Nice.
of years here, and boy, they are like professional, right? And then it really put me back in my place.
Right.
And I
She's
was
changing
I'm
the
not,
subject
I'm not
now.
as good as I thought I was.
Okay. We're going to get you at the end. So we're thinking about the song that you're
Maybe
gonna
we'll do
sing.
some karaoke or something later. I don't know.
What do you love about music?
You know, I love the combination of how it's so orderly, but it's also so creative. I mean, I've not ever answered that question before, but there's like a formula behind it, right? And you know, I'm a math guy, right? Music actually, it can be very formulaic, and there's a lot of math actually in there. And I think that's really beautiful about music. But then it's also got this whole creative component, which is just, it can just bring out emotions, and it can really elevate, you know, a mood or an activity. And it's just, I'm just a big fan.
So, Julia, what was the single hardest moment in your career to date?
Single hardest moment. Well, gosh, I haven't reflected on it in a while, but probably maybe two come to mind. I'll generalize and say first that probably the single hardest moment have to be with losses, right? Anytime that I've had to do a number of casualty notifications, those have just been really difficult, really, really challenging times. It really, I think, speaks to the gravity of the profession that we're in, and speaks to the seriousness of what we do. And those, I think, have been the most difficult experiences.
Yeah. And ma'am, you know, we always say that, you know, you learn a lot, even from your mistakes. And can you tell us about a mistake you made and what you learned from it during your career?
Sure. So many to choose from.
No, I'm sure there's not that many.
A mistake I made. You know, what comes to mind is a sort of an experience I had during one of the commands I was in, and I was, leading and nurturing and mentoring a young officer that was under my charge. And the mistake I think I had was in sort of mischaracterizing that officer and thinking that, oh, this person is not going to have a potential in the Army, or maybe, isn't meeting my expectations or something along those lines. And I remember at one point, like running alongside this officer during like a PT test or something, and looking over, and I was like, "You're not even breathing hard. Run faster." and we finished the 2-mile run, and the officer is like, "Wow, that was the best time I ever had." I was like, why weren't you running faster? And the officer was like, "Well, no one had ever told me to." And it was sort of like this metaphor that we like worked through the rest of that time that we worked together. It was like, it's not hard to do what we're doing, but just put in a little extra effort. And when that happened, boy, that officer did all the work, did everything. And I just did what the Army told me to do, which was, you got to counsel your officers once a quarter. And I'd pick up the counseling form and I'd be like, "Well, what does it say I'm supposed to do?" "Okay, I'm supposed to talk about areas for improvement and areas to sustain." "Okay, let me write some of those down," right? I just had what the Army told me to do. And this officer, turned out wonderful. And I think I just misjudged them a little too early on. And I think I don't regret it, because, I got to learn from that process, and it profoundly impacted me.
Join AUSA, the Army's premier professional association and host of the largest land power exposition in the United States. AUSA is open to everyone, including all ranks and components. So whether you have a relationship with the U.S. Army or simply want to honor those who serve, You can learn more online at ausa.org/join.
Welcome back to Army Matters. Now, Julia, I got to be honest. There's a question I need to ask you. How do you get people excited about systems engineering at West Point?
Hey, you say that like it's not exciting.
Well, I don't know really what it's about. My son's a mechanical engineer, aerospace engineer who works at NASA, by the way.
Amazing.
Yeah, but I don't know what it is. So I guess if you don't know, how do you get
Sure.
excited, right? So I'm trying to make it sound like I didn't make fun of system engineering, so I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
And how do you make it relevant to them?
Right. So I think so we believe everything is a system, right? Just like I said earlier, right? This podcast is the computer system, West Point's a system, right? It's just an integrated set of components designed to achieve an objective. So I'd say from like a pedagogical perspective,
What does that mean? Wait, stop.
from like a teaching perspective, I would pedagogical.
See, I don't feel like the dumb.
I like that one.
Explain that to our listeners. What? Say that again.
From like a teaching perspective, from
Okay.
like a pedagogical
word-
perspective.
What? Say it one more time.
Pedagogical.
I got to Google that. I have no idea what that means. Go ahead.
Sure. From like a teaching perspective, I try and find something the student would get excited about, right? Like, hey, you're a kid in my class. Hey, what club are you in? What you play a sport? Great. You're on the basketball team. Wonderful. Okay, so the basketball team is a system, just an integrated set of components designed to achieve an objective, right? And there are some principles that guide that system. And shouldn't we be able to optimize those principles to, again, achieve sort of that full realization of that system? And so just trying to get them excited in that way, like, hey, let's make it relevant to you. Is there something that, lots of times these cadets are in leadership positions in the barracks, right, in their companies, and they're trying to figure out a better process for something. And I'm like, yes, this is systems engineering. We're trying to engineer the system to be more efficient. We're trying to engineer your process. And so we try to make it relevant to them. So that's from like a teaching perspective, to just try to, give them sort of bite-sized toy problems that they can start to conceptualize. But really from like a more pragmatic or maybe practical perspective, I mean, as an Army officer that's also a consumer of these products known as second lieutenants that we're trying to ship out of here every year, I really try to impress upon them that, hey, these are skills and tool sets that we need in the Army today.
So your PhD, the terminal degree, is about using risk analysis and data to combat sex trafficking. How did you come with that subject? And
Yes,
what
sir.
are you doing?
So I came upon that particular topic when I entered into my PhD studies when I was at the University of Michigan. And I was working under a wonderful professor named Dr. Seth Geikema, and he ran a risk analysis group. And so I remember one day sort of like going around the lab, and everyone kind of talks a little bit about what they're doing. And, we got this guy over here, he's doing, using machine learning to do predictive modeling and some sort of critical infrastructure. And we've got, this gal over here, and she's trying to predict hurricane evacuations. And then we've got, someone over here, and they're doing research into, using these tools, risk analysis for vulnerable populations like redlining and opioids and a couple other things. And she had done a little bit of work in sex trafficking. And I was like, oh, I had just come from working in the special operations community. And I was like, that sounds like bad guys. I'll take bad guys. Let me do bad guys. And he was like, well, let's think about this a little. We kind of pumped the brakes a little bit. And I was like, hey, Army says I got to get out of here in 3 years. So I got to pick a topic and I got to go for it. And then as I got into the research, I just found it to be really, really rewarding to be able to work in an area where it's not a really well-funded area for research. And so to be able to do work and continue to sort of like advance the ball to combat sex trafficking.
So, our producers go everywhere, near and far, and talk to a lot of people. But
They don't really go anywhere. They just pick up a phone.
They pick up a phone.
Yeah.
Near and far, but it was virtual. I mean, so it's okay. So our producer spoke to a West Point cadet in advance of this class. And they said, you are one of the best professors there. What makes you a successful teacher?
Gosh, it's hard not to say this without sounding braggy or something, right?
Just do it.
Just do it. It's
do
okay.
Generally, if I was to map out my teaching philosophy or how I run my classroom in general, I would say that probably my students would tell you that the distance between me and the student is shorter.
Right. You're more relatable.
I am truly my authentic self, right? I'm not a different person outside of the classroom than I am at the house or with my officers. Like, I am an authentic version of myself. And so I can be vulnerable in the classroom. I can tell them when I don't know something and I have to go find that answer. I can also tell them these are some things I learned in the Army along the way. And so I always try to incorporate my Army experiences into the classroom for sure. It creates an environment in which they can learn.
It's conducive to learning. Yeah,
it is very conducive. So what would your kids say?
My kids would say that they don't experience the same thing.
They don't get the same type of love. A little bit more discipline.
You know, my son used to accuse me to treating him like a soldier, right? And I said, no, I treat my soldiers like my kids.
That's right.
That's right. That's right.
That's right.
Which
You love
means-
them like your kids.
That's
You
right.
love
You
them.
have to, right? You should love them.
You love them like your kids. Hey, my kids are still at the age where they think it's cute when I have an inspection, right? Like I'll say, hey, go clean up the basement. Tell me when you're ready for inspection.
That's
and they'll
awesome.
line up and they fall in and I walk around and I do an inspection. They still
Don't
think
ever
it's
stop
cute.
doing it. Don't ever stop doing it. Yeah. You obviously do make a difference because you have something called a sunshine box.
A what?
Sunshine box, Les. She has a sun. I think like the teleporting that she can do.
Yeah,
I
you mean
think
like a box that's got
Probably.
sunshine in it?
Sunshine.
It probably does. We're going to learn something new. I don't know. She probably did. Maybe she teleported somewhere and got it.
Oh, right.
That's right.
Nowadays it's actually a drawer I have down here, but it used to be a little box, and I have everything from little thank you notes to little Post-it notes to things that cadets leave me, or officers that I've had a chance to work with, and they fill up a drawer that I have that it was actually a recommendation from a friend of mine that I went to college with, and she said, hey, if you're ever having a bad day, just open up your sunshine box and pull it open, read a card, and remind yourself.
So is there one specific item in your sunshine box or drawer, sunshine drawer now, right, that stands out the most to you? Just one.
I just got one yesterday. I'll just pull that one out.
As she goes into her sunshine. Oh,
I just got one yesterday.
read it to us. Read it to us.
It's oh my gosh. This is from a cadet that just dropped this off yesterday, and she said, Colonel Coxen, thank you so much for your incredible semester. I have learned not only about systems, but also about life, special operations, and the Army. Your mentorship throughout the semester was truly intangible, and I couldn't be more lucky and blessed to have you as my instructor and now mentor. Thank you again for everything, ma'am. You truly inspire me and pump me up to join the best fighting force in the world. I hope you and your family have a wonderful holiday. Oh, I'm going to cry.
Oh, that's nice.
That's so cool.
That's just the first one I grabbed off the top.
Can you share with us a specific student that's made progress while you taught them?
Oh, gosh. A specific student that, yes, I can think of so many.
Just give us one. You're not just...
Yeah, you got to have a favorite on the show.
Right.
Everybody's going to know that's your favorite
I can't
student.
have a favorite. They're all just like my kids. I can't pick my favorite.
You got to pick one.
Sure. I certainly can't take credit for any of his accomplishments, but it's been really satisfying to watch a former student of mine, Art Middlebrooks, come up through the Army. He's a major now, works in the G8, and is getting ready to come back and teach here. So he's getting ready to go start his PhD studies. And the reason I say it's so satisfying to see someone like that is, when I came here to teach the second time around, he was still here. We overlapped a little bit, and I would have to do sort of a blinky blink in the hallway, like, hey, is that cadet rank or is that major's rank that kid's wearing? Because I swear to God, he was just a cadet like yesterday.
Yeah.
And then they come right back around, and maybe I even taught him the class that he was teaching. And gosh, did I teach that thing right? I started thinking like, I hope I taught that thing right because now he's teaching it to a bunch of new people, right? So it's been really great to see. It's really this, we talk about force multiplication, but I mean, it couldn't be more tangible here, where you really see like that force multiplication, where I did that thing and then, gosh, now he has a room full of 18 students that he's going to do that for. And someone in that class is going to go on and he's going to come back and teach, and he's going to have another room of 18 students.
Man, that's awesome. And I could tell why people are inspired, led, and motivated by you. And you're amazing. Thank you.
She should be an announcer. What do you think, Dan?
I think so.
It's the music stuff, right?
Is that what it is?
Give us hello, everyone, and welcome to Army Matters. Go
Yes,
ahead.
give us that.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Army Matters.
Oh my God!
Oh, you can replace us right now.
Oh my God!
Yes.
Do you want the job? Do you want the job?
Can have it right now. Okay, so as promised, we want our closing a song. Come on, give us a song.
Oh, say, can you see?
We gotta stand up.
Our hosts, Dan and Les, have very busy travel schedules, going to conferences and installations around the country and world. In today's Chapter Spotlight, we discuss an event that Dan attended in Frankfurt, Germany, to acknowledge the important work that the General C.W. Abrams chapter has done. After World War II, American service members deployed in Germany were accompanied by their families. However, if a child under the age of 2 in one of those military families passed away while overseas, the U.S. government unfortunately did not authorize the shipment of the child's remains. As a result, the Kinderfeld American Military Children's Cemetery was created within the Frankfurt Main Cemetery. From 1946 to 1986, over 700 children were buried there, before official military policies on the matter finally changed. The General C.W. Abrams chapter from Wiesbaden, Germany, recently became the official sponsors of the cemetery. Working with local volunteer organizations, they have been beautifying and decorating the space for holidays and visits. On November 27th of this past year, Dan, alongside other AUSA executives, attended a wreath-laying ceremony at the cemetery. It was a stirring event, preceded by a community cleanup of the space. Every person in attendance acknowledged the importance of the cemetery and the incredible work that the chapter is doing to take care of those little ones who were left behind for so many years. If you or your chapter would like to be profiled on the show, please email us at podcast@ausa.org. Hooah!
To all our listeners, thanks for joining us. Army Matters is brought to you by the Association of the United States Army, the U.S. Army's professional association, member-supported, Army-connected. Visit us at ausa.org for more information or to become a member. Your membership helps AUSA continue to carry out its mission, educate, inform, and connect with the total Army, our industry partners, and supporters of a strong national defense. Today's episode was hosted by Lieutenant General Retired Les Smith and SMA Retired Dan Dailey, and anchor hosted by Carrie Barrow-Heckes. Anthony Del Call is the producer and writer, and Andy Bosnack is the supervising sound editor. Ellen Toner is the content editor. Unzinga Curry is the executive producer, and the senior producers are Carrie Barrow-Heckes and LaSharon Duncan. Be sure to subscribe to Army Matters wherever you get your podcasts, and please leave a review. As you know, we love seeing stars in the Army, especially if it comes in the form of a 5-star review. AUSA's Army Matters podcast can also be heard on Reach Across America Radio on Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, on the iHeartRadio app, the Odyssey app, and the TuneIn app with the search of the word Reef. AUSA's Army Matters podcast primary purpose is to entertain. The podcast does not constitute advice or services. While guests are invited to listen, listeners, please note that you're not being provided professional advice from the podcast or the guest. The views and opinions of our guests do not necessarily reflect the views of AUSA. For questions or to provide topic recommendations, email us at podcast@ausa.org. I'm LaSharon Duncan. Hope you have a great Army Day. Hooah!